All right, welcome back. It's still AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of your state. Of course, we're going to be taking a report, and the report is quite close to our topic of this morning. It's talking about the World Bank's report on the alleged diversion or deduction of funds. That's what we're going to be looking at this morning. Stay tuned as you watch and pay attention to the details. Thank you.
Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo.
According to the Nigeria Development Update released in April 2026 by the World Bank, concerns have been raised over substantial revenue leakages in Nigeria's fiscal framework. The report alleges that about 34.53 trillion naira, representing roughly 41% of total federation's revenue, was not remitted to the federation's accounts between 2023 and 2025. The report further indicates that although gross revenues recorded notable increases within the period, extensive deductions at source and what it describes as a complex fiscal structure significantly reduced the funds ultimately shared among the three tiers of government. These revelations have sparked widespread reactions among Nigerians, many of whom view the figures as indicative of deep-rooted inefficiencies and possible mismanagement of public funds that could otherwise be channeled towards critical national development. However, the federal government has dismissed the claims, describing them as a misinterpretation of Nigeria's public finance architecture. Authorities insist that the deductions, often perceived as leakages, are legitimate and form part of established fiscal operations coordinated by the Federation Account Allocation Committee. According to government officials, such deductions include statutory transfers, cost of collection charges, security-related expenditures, and approved refunds to government agencies, all of which are captured within existing legal and administrative frameworks. A financial expert, Mr. Tunji Adepeju, also weighed in, noting that recent policy reforms, including Executive Order 9, have strengthened accountability mechanisms and curtailed many of the leakages previously associated with the system.
In recent times, with the Executive Order 9, the federal government, the president, are now directed that whatever you generated, put it in the account. Whatever you now think you have spent, bring it up. We'll all discuss it and agree. So that is the way it is. So whoever is commenting on leakages, that must have been in the past. Not now. Everything now goes to the Nigerian Revenue Service. These are the reforms that have been taking place in the last probably 1 or 2 years, which we should commend and not be living in the past when things were done wrongly.
On the other hand, Labour leader and agricultural economist Comrade Emmanuel Ogundiran expressed concern that certain revenues may still remain undeclared or retained outside official channels, thereby limiting the full financial capacity available for national development.
There are retentions that are supposed to be declared that were not declared. It is only what was declared that will go to the NRS. But IMF was now saying those retentions are high, that more money was coming in. And the more the money, the more the retention. Like collection fee. That collection fee is a percentage of, I think, 4% of whatever was collected. Now look at 4% of 1 billion and 4% of 1 trillion. So what the IMF is saying is that rather than dealing with percentage, they can deal with a fixed collection fee because more money is now coming in. And that money that is being retained is reducing the fiscal space
As the debate continues, the issue underscores the urgent need for greater transparency, stronger institutional oversight, and improved public understanding of Nigeria's fiscal processes.
All right, welcome back to that report. Of course, you listen to it, and it's along the line with the World Bank report on the 34.53 trillion naira Nigeria hidden spending system, according to reports. We have a guest this morning that will be doing justice to the conversation this morning, and we have Mr. Bright Richard. Mr. Bright Richard is a public affairs analyst. You're welcome this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you, and good morning, Nigerians.
It's good to have you. All right, the World Bank has raised concern over Nigeria's fiscal framework, revealing that more than 34.53 trillion naira was diverted from Federation revenue over the past 3 years through the pre-distribution deductions. In its latest Nigeria development update obtained from its website, the global lender disclosed that although total Federation revenue rose sharply to about 84 trillion naira between 2023 and 2025, about 41% of the earning did not reach the Federation account for distribution to the federal, state, and local governments. According to reports, gross revenue increased from 17.08 trillion naira in 2023 to an estimated 37.44 trillion naira in 2025. However, deduction classified as first-line charges also rose significantly from 6.22 trillion naira to nearly 15 trillion naira within the same period, reducing the pool of funds available for distribution. The World Bank noted that the development has created paradox in which rising revenue has not translated into improved public spending capacity. Mr. Bright, that's the report according to the World Bank and the reality of deductions. Now, let's look at it. Ordinarily, should there be deductions in the first instance?
Yeah, let's even start from what World Bank is trying to say, that if you look at Nigeria fiscal reforms or fiscal system, there's an increase in revenue generation. And if you want to look at it from that angle, where you have an increase in revenue generation, then definitely there should also be an increase in spending. And what they mean by increase in spending, government wants to go into capital projects, you have enough revenue for that. You want to go into recurrent projects, you have enough revenue for that. And that alone should have also reduced the cost of borrowing. So now, but what is actually happening is that as they are collecting, they are deducting it from the point of collection. As revenue is increasing, the deduction also is increasing. So that is just a simple summary of what World Bank is saying. Before, the cost of deduction was about 6 trillion naira, and gradually it rose to over 10 trillion, about 15 trillion or thereabout. So when you look at that perspective, World Bank is raising an alarm that the government really need to look into. Why the deduction, and what is the deduction meant for? Because if you want to build a credible accounting system, you are collecting money on behalf of Nigerians and on behalf of the system, on behalf of government. Let the money get to the source. And from the source, which is FAC, distribution will be made. If the entire 80 trillion or 84 trillion naira gets to FAC, and the FIRS, or which is now the NRS, is going to remove its cost of collection, it will be documented. Okay. The money goes to FAC, and at the point of distribution to state, local government, and federal, then those who collected it will be given. That is one. Then the NMPCL, which is now a commercial entity, also having cost of collection or deducting at the point of collection, it raised some question. You know, NMPCL have been having that issue before they even became limited liability company. This issue of NMPCL removing money they claim they use in paying subsidy, and at the end of the day, nothing will be left for disbursement. So they've been having these issues with the federal government, especially when the former minister was there, Kemi Adeosun, that NNPC will claim there won't be money for remittance at the end of the month because a certain amount have been deducted, all in the name of cost of collection or whatever. And also, when the minister was trying to defend this scenario, he made mention of some statutory transfers to states. What happens to allocation? So that means if you are to examine where state governors or state get money, there are so many areas apart from normal allocation. Now you're talking about statutory transfer. They will still have ecological funds, and other areas where they get money. You also have security votes. So if you want to really hold a state governor to be accountable, where will you come from? Where are you going to come from? Security votes? Is this revenue part of security votes that governors are not accountable for? So you now look at a lot of loopholes, a lot of untraceable and unaccountable spendings according to the World Bank.
Okay, now what you say, you are agreeing that the World Bank has not outrightly said money has been stolen.
No,
right?
no.
So we are satisfying now that the World Bank has said, well, we are seeing that large amounts are spent before the money has formally been collected in those accounts. But then there are questions now on, the worrisome nature of this monies, the increase that we are seeing right there from there. And there are people who are now pointing at this whole scheme as a shadow or parallel budget system, which raises questions about those who are controlling this. So what questions do we need to ask from these bodies to ensure that we are getting the right figures? Because you have mentioned some of the agencies who are involved right now. What questions are needed so that we start, understanding the full scope of everything?
Now, number one, let's start with the major guys involved in it, the NRS, the Nigeria Revenue Service. Now, if they have to build in what they call cost of collection, number one, that agency is being run, maintained, and financed by the government. So which means the activity is being funded by the government. And what is the activity? Collect revenue, generate revenue. So why are you now also deducting cost of collection? So it's like double. I'm working as a staff in an organization and I'm being paid salary. And also I'm collecting, let's say I'm a teacher, I'm teaching in a school, and the school management is paying me for the service I'm rendering. And at the same time, I'm also deducting my service fee from the tuition fee the students are paying. That's double earning. So in the first place, there shouldn't have been what they call cost of collection, because Nigeria is trying to build a systemic corrupt system. And what I mean by systemic corruption...
Nigeria or some individual?
Or the system, they are building those irresponsible, because a situation where you cannot account, revenue is increasing, cost of collection is also increasing. How do you relate that? Is it that you are going to more places, or more people are paying, or the existing ones are paying, what they are paying have increased? So because of that, your charges is now increasing. If the NRS happens to be an independent agency that is not being funded, has nothing to do with the government, it's being contracted or sublet to be doing this on behalf of the government, and you now say, okay, fine, for every amount of money we collect, this percentage goes to us to run our operations, to run our services, then that would have been understandable. But a situation where you collect, because when it comes to accountability, every 1 naira that goes out of the system should be traced and accounted for and well documented.
Okay, Mr. Brad, can I give you information? First and foremost, based on the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act of 2025, which rebranded the FIRS, the law does indeed allow for collection of a cost of collection. The Nigerian Revenue Service, NRS, under the new act, and the preceding 2007 Act, the Revenue Service is legally permitted to retain a percentage of revenue it collects to fund its own operations. I'll give you the further, breakdown shortly. Let's go on a commercial break, and when we come back, I'll give you the remaining part. Stay with us, don't go away.
It's up to architect Bisola and builder Brian to rebuild the city.
We'll need some help. Let's get up and go!
You'll need more Cowbell Choco to complete your mission.
To get up and go, give them Cowbell Choco.
All right, welcome back. It's still AM120 on the Broadcasting Corporation of your state. All right, of course, before we went on that break, I was sharing with us some information about the new Act 2025 of the Nigeria Revenue Service. And of course, statutory provision in that act, the law establishes a cost of collection as a mechanism to reimburse the agency for administrative expenses, the staff salary, and infrastructure required to generate national revenue. The rate, traditionally, this has been set at 4% of non-oil revenue collected. Purpose, it is intended to ensure the agency remains financially autonomous and insensitivity to meet collection targets without relying solely on direct budgetary allocation from the Federation account.
No, there are two sides to what you said. Without relying solely on the budget allocation. So that means there's also a part of that budget allocation to that agency.
Maybe subvention. That's what I mean. That's another area we need to dig into. Maybe
because they are collecting from that. This is the new act that established the NRS. Now, they have been given the backing to collect 4%. And if you are to collect 4% of, let's say, 37 trillion naira non-oil revenue being gotten from proceeds of tax and whatever areas they get it from, it should be enough. If we are to go by this new act, it should be enough for them to run their operation, because we are looking at 41%. And if you are looking at 41% over a period of 2023 to 2025, if the duration is right, 2023 to 2025, and the major agencies involved, you have the NMPCL, the FIRS, which is now the NRS, and statutory transfer, which they claim is going to some states, and also that of defense. Because if you talk about, if you even bring defense, because it's more or less like the government is trying to justify the reason for the 41%. Because if NRS is now 4%, take 4% from 41%, you still have about 37%. So which other agencies are responsible for the 37%? So are you going to say the NNPC is taking almost 10%? So there are a lot of loopholes. Apart from, with the NRS, it's just a drop in that figure. Unless they will say this 4% implementation starts with this new system, which begins January 2026. So what were they collecting in 2025? Is it more than 4% or is it less than 4%? And if you look at from that narrative being given, is as if what they are collecting then is more than 4%.
Okay, now let's look at the reasons why we have been warned about this, by the borrowers, so to speak. What are the implications for Nigerians? Because that's the reason we are worried, right? For Nigeria and Nigerians, we need to check out what implications this will have on us, either economically, when you talk about allocations for states, amongst other things, funding for education and other parts, as well as, talking about what it creates, in the long term because we have to look at all those things. So what are the implications for us as we speak?
It's more or less like a direct answer, which is financial starvation. And what I mean by financial starvation, if you are to go by 41%, that means for every 100 trillion or 100 billion you make as a government, 41 billion goes to revenue leakage, according to the World Bank, or hidden charges or hidden expenses. And part of those hidden expenses or hidden expenditure, that is part of the cost of collection, the NNPC deducts theirs and other agencies, statutory transfer, money goes to defense. And these things are not being accounted for. So it creates room for financial starvation. And minus financial starvation, it also creates room for corruption and non-accountability or inaccountability. I don't know which of the English to use to classify that. Because a situation where money did not get to FAC, but it has been spent before getting to FAC, or it has been deducted before it gets to FAC, then it now creates a room. We've been struggling with this issue of, what do you call it, the ones that governors do get, security votes. And we've been struggling with that security vote because it is not well utilized, that's one. It is not being accounted for, that's two. And cases where it is being utilized, the money is being diverted. If you look at security itself, which is also part of the excuse in this particular one, security, the defense budget, defense gets one of the highest budget, I think about 5 to 6 trillion naira. That is for budget. And now, under this World Bank allegation, defense is also coined into it. So that means there are double expenditure on a particular headline, which is security. And when you look at it from that perspective, a system that finances are not well accounted for, definitely there's bound to be massive corruption and a lot of money being misappropriated. And money will not be used for the main purpose. And that is why I said it's a direct answer, financial starvation.
Okay, now, are there political implications? Because now we are seeing, or the opposition wading into the discussion that we're presently having. Are there, political implications for Nigeria?
Well, politically, one of the major political tools that we always see in Nigeria is propaganda. And they use it to sell their candidate. Politicians will actually use this as a selling tool or a way to bring down a particular government. But it did not start today. It did not start yesterday. It has been a systemic error. And we need a firm administration to cut it off and set the record straight. Like, I will appreciate what the NRS did, giving us a specific figure. Their cost of collection stands at 4%. And if your cost of collection stands at 4%, and what we are looking at is about 41%, then definitely remove 4% from 41%, which means a bulk of the money is going somewhere, which we need to trace. And when you begin to trace it, then what is the number of, what amount of money is being given out as statutory transfer, and which states are the ones benefiting? The 50 billion naira controversy that Oyo State had some months ago, is it part of it? These are questions that will be asked. Is it part of it? When it comes to intervention funds to state, maybe through NEMA, accident or whatever, disaster management, is it coined? Is it part of this statutory transfer we are talking about? So these are questions and explanation that Nigeria needs to get so that we'll be able to account. Because where money is not being accounted, then there's massive corruption. So these are some of the crises.
So based on the earlier question I asked you, as of 2025 reform, which rebanded the FIRS, the Nigerian Revenue Service does not receive a subvention in the traditional sense of government grant. Instead, it is funded through cost of collection, which is clear. Now, the funding mechanism by law, the NRS is entitled to retain that 4%. Historically, 4% of the non-all revenue it collects from the Federation. And the purpose is self-funding model is designed to ensure the agency remains independent and has the resources necessary to modernize tax administration and enforce compliance. Let's be objective on this. We've talked about many of the government agencies that are not being independent. And whether we like it or not, it might just be good for this kind of agency to be independent so that we're sure of, revenue generation. We know what it means. Even as an individual, when you borrow somebody money, even banks, you know what it means, what it takes to get the money back, after lending. Don't you think that this should have been a welcome development rather than chastising the agency for being autonomous, for having 4% to run their cost, and government does not have to subsidize them or give them any subvention?
No, the issue is that they are not the major player in terms of this default. I'll call it a default. Because 4% minus 41% or thereabouts, the difference is very little. So which means the bulk of the money may not be going to them, according to the World Bank prediction. That's one. Then number two, the time frame that it was being given. This law came in effect 2026. Before 2026, how much was their cost of collection? What was the percentage? Were they still collecting at 4%?
I read it historically 4%. It's a word.
So if it has been 4% from the onset, then definitely minus 4% from 41%. That means the money still goes somewhere else. Because if you look at the defense coming from the Minister of Finance, Taiwo Yedele, he said he listed cost of collection. He talked about statutory transfers to state. He talked about defense. And when you look at these three things and some other ones he mentioned, cost of collection for NRS is about 4%. Take it away from the figure we have, we still have a bulk. You have 38. Then now talk about statutory transfer. On what grounds? Because states get allocation. Every month they gather at FEC meeting, they do the allocation. So outside allocation, that means states still get other fundings that is different from the allocation, which needs to be investigated. So what funding and what purpose are they being funded? We understand that emergency can actually come up at any time, like what happened in Oyo State. And we are approaching the rainy season, and there have been NEMA alerts, warnings that some states may be flooded. So are we also going to wait for those states to be flooded so that another statutory transfer will be made to those states? And it will now be captured under statutory transfer. And that's why I always bring that word, financial starvation. We don't prevent, we want to cure or want to give out palliative.
Because why is that? It looks like you're trying to point at something, like a problem in there. Because like the order should be, prevention first.
No, because when they use that word statutory transfer, I'm not a good English student, but when you talk about statutory, that means this thing is a constant. It's what they do.
So it said that in the current fiscal context, April 2026, the Ministry of Finance and Office of the Accountant General are discussing statutory transfer in two specific ways: the annual federal budget allocation and the monthly FAC deductions. It also said that in 2026, a Appropriation Act recently signed into law, April 17, 2026, the government has earmarked approximately 4.799 trillion naira for statutory transfer. These are first-line charges that are automatically funded to ensure the independence of certain arm of government and agencies. INEC, 1.1 trillion naira. Niger Delta Development Commission, 618 billion. Universal Basic Education, 441 billion. National Assembly, 344 billion. National Judicial Council, 341 billion. Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, 214 billion. Monthly FAC transfer, when the Ministry of Finance reports on the Federation Account Allocation Committee FAC during the meeting, such as most recent meeting in April 2026 for March revenue Statutory transfer refers to the portion of the gross statutory revenue that is set aside before the rest is shared between the federal, state, and the local government. So gross statutory revenue, 1.699 trillion naira, cost of collection by NRS, I beg your pardon, customs, 81.084 billion naira, transfer refunds and savings, 246 billion plus, net distributable statutory revenue, 1.320 trillion. I just gave you a breakdown of what.
Now, if you look at the breakdown, some things are not adding up. They talk about statutory transfer. They mention some agency like the NDDC. Now, if you look at the NDDC, like I said some time ago in some programs, that incidentally I'm from that region, and can we actually pay a visit to that commission, Niger Delta Development Commission, before the Tinubu government actually brought up different commissions, the Northeast Development Commission and the Southeast, I think they've also had that. So which means what he is saying is statutory transfer from the collection, a certain amount is being removed and given to this commission. Now, if you are doing it that way, what we are saying and what the World Bank is actually saying, why not bring every money to the table? Have it together and in fact meeting, because you are separating. Because if you are having an hidden charges or hidden expenditure and you're not bringing it to the open, then there's possibility of some corrupt manipulation to cover up. Like I said, the NDDC, there are a lot of thousands of projects. I do visit the region once in a while, projects that have not been executed. Outside the NDDC, we also have the OPADEC.
But I think that responsibility lies with the lawmakers to do the oversight functions and to raise alarm when all of these are not done. Because you'd agree with me that in our laws, the National Assembly, the National Judicial Council are entities that should stand on their own to avoid interference.
They should stand on their own, but we've seen cases where ministers, governors are giving cars and buying, giving buildings to the judicial.
So it's ideally versus reality.
Yes.
Now,
so it's like you are saying something. This is what is being stated and what should be done. Statutory transfers that should be done. But in the real sense, they are being starved. We're not saying it.
I think what we need to do more is monitoring.
That is where accountability comes, and that's the point I've been raising. Because when you have hidden, it's not being in the open.
I wish that we don't call it hidden, because now we know what the transfer.
If World Bank have not raised the alarm, would
maybe
they have
World Bank didn't have this information, and now this information is in public.
No, if World Bank had not raised the alarm, this explanation would have not come.
That's an assumption. The explanation
that's
might
the reality.
Actually be there and maybe
what?
not assessed yet, because sometimes when issues don't come up, you won't even have an answer. No, there's one thing my own definition of integrity is responsibility and accountability plus transparency. I can be accountable. You are only accountable when you are being asked. What did you eat yesterday? I ate rice and beans. I'm accountable. That's what I ate. But transparency comes in without being asked. I'll tell you the world that, look, yesterday I ate rice and beans. That's transparency. I'm letting the world know. So a government that wants to flag integrity, you don't need to wait for an issue to come up, because this money are from the people. NRS will collect tax. I don't know if you started doing your filings, but it will get to a point the system itself will force you to, because when you will need to do something, you account. And you are being told that for this thing to be done, you need to get your tax clearance. For you to sort out this issue on your account, you need to get your tax clearance. Then you have to go to NRS and they begin to count the months. I had just recovered from an experience. That's why I'm saying it. I had to go there. They count the number of months I have not paid. That for me to get it, I have to go and pay it. So when you begin to talk about taxpayers' money, and nothing is being done, we're not even talking about natural resources. Nigerians can look away. I earn 100,000 in quotes. I earn 100,000. And at the end of the month, the 100,000 is not enough for me to feed. It's not enough to take care of me.
and you are expecting me to still pay tax from that 100,000. It becomes a burden.
No, I thought this tax thing had been sorted out. We now know what to pay tax on, the level of people that should pay certain tax. I thought all of this had been sorted out. So why are we going back there?
The information is not well stated. Income tax, whether you're working, you're not working, for every income you get, you'll be taxed. In fact, I was in a tax meeting, and the tax officials were saying that tax is a very, very, it doesn't know morals. If you steal, you're into prostitution, you pay. After you've paid that tax, that is when then the law cannot come in. How did you get your money? The tax man doesn't look at how you got your money. In as much as it's an income,
so
you will pay. Churches will start paying. It's an income. Pastors will pay.
All right, Mr. Richard, I know you've come across this question a number of times, so I'm asking you now because of your views so far this morning. Do you think that Nigeria is operating two different budgets?
No, from what is going on, we're operating two different budgets. You're operating the one that is being shared FAC allocation. And if you observe critically, when governors are being greed, they are being greed based on what they get from FAC, majorly. I'm not saying the other areas are not there. But some of all these little things becomes an issue, because when it's not being well accounted for, how many governors is being questioned? Would they tell you how much they get as security votes? No, none of them will tell you. So these are money that is not being well accounted for. And they have their liberty to divert either for good purpose or for bad purpose or for personal interest. So when you don't account, then definitely you are being tempted. Like somebody told me some time ago, some many years ago, she was the one in charge of the church finance. And she said she was broke at a certain time and she borrowed money from there. I said, have you returned the money back? He said, yes. I said, next time you don't do that. Because if you borrow today and you pay back tomorrow, next tomorrow you may borrow. You may not pay it back as at when due. Another time you may borrow, who's asking me? When I will pay will not become an issue. And by the time demand will be coming, the money may not be available, and then you start covering up. That's how stealing starts.
All right, so what do you think, I know this is a very interesting question. What do you think is controlling Nigeria's money?
It should be two sets of persons, the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy and the Accountant General. And that is why they were the first set of persons to defend this issue, not even the president. And if you are to go back to find out the reason why Wale Edo is being shown the way out, the controversy actually started when the president said in August that we've surpassed our revenue target. And when he went to defend, he said we've been able to get 10 trillion naira, which is countering what the president said, making the president look like a liar. Almost immediately, it was the robe of so many of his portfolio. Although there was some back and front information coming up that there was an heated argument at FAC meeting. Yeah, there was an heated argument at FAC meeting. And what could be the argument? Why will you challenge me? I said we've surpassed our revenue target. So they are the ones controlling it. They are the ones in charge. So what comes in, they know. What goes out, the NRS is under their ministry. It's an agency under them, so they knows what is coming in and they knows what is going out. And the president may have a figure. I've experimented this. You have somebody keeping your money, and today you approach her, give me 1 naira. Tomorrow, give me 2 naira. Next tomorrow, give me 3 naira. It will get to a level that the person may want to resist because he or she under statutory allocation, then why is our judges complaining?
Okay, let's quickly look at, Wale Edun's exit. You'd agree with me that he exited, at the point of his 70th birthday. And as if that was not enough, he also went on a visit to the World Bank. Now, do you think there's any link between Wale Edun's plan or resignation and the World Bank report? And then he resigned and that information came to light.
Now, if you look at it, it's a very interesting question because I've been looking at it in that direction. Number one, Wale Edun formerly worked with the World Bank.
Yes.
So he's an insider. He knows all that. That was one. Then number two, the report came few days before his removal. Few days.
He resigned. Let's not say removal.
The resignation came in after an announcement. The announcement should have carried that word, he resigned. But it was after backlash, that was when they brought it in. And most of people who leave office, even Betta Edu resigned. So there's a lot of funny scenarios, but that's the political aspect of his exit. But when you now look at it, he worked with the World Bank before. He's a finance person. He knows more of this. Then look at the defense. Then he was the minister who defended this allegation, not him. It was the Minister of State who was now the Minister of Finance. The Minister of State for Finance was the one who defended this. So that shows that his exit, I don't want to say recognition, but his exit may have a lot to do with this.
Okay, now let's look at this.
Sorry, Victor. Sorry. Let's get to the end of that. You said it may have something to do with it. And so that means that whether we like it or not, we have certain people spying on Nigeria who are Nigerians and feeding the international bodies.
No, one thing, if you understand how the World Bank operates, December I was with a friend who also worked with the World Bank, and we're cracking a lot of joke that you are a guy at the top. We are not your mate, but he's a Nigerian who got that privilege to work with the World Bank. And not only that, too, there's another area we also need to look into.
All right, before we look into that area, beg your pardon, we have to take this commercial break, and when we return, we'll delve deeper into that other area that you were trying to talk about, talking about money.
Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo!
All right, thank you very much for sticking around with us. Yes, we are still having conversations around the World Bank reports on the 34.53 trillion naira. Well, they say Nigeria's eating spending system, and our guest is still the public affairs analyst, Mr. Bright Richard, who's been, serving us some in-depth analysis on everything happening, talking about this monies. And you were talking about some areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at those areas, I said number one, there are Nigerians who work with the World Bank. Then also, if you look at it critically, there are what we call, I'm trying to remember the name they call them, these are consultants. There are consultants. In fact, there's a senator from my state too, these are consultants, and that is where they make their money for every loan. It's more of like a marketer with a microfinance bank or with a commercial bank, and your job is to look for customers. And Nigeria is one of the big customers to the World Bank. And the World Bank have been giving us financial advice, economic advice, not because they love us, but to ensure that our debt servicing, not debt repayment, debt servicing is maintained. You service a car does not mean you bought a car. You service a car does not mean you replace a portion of that car. You are sustaining the debt. When Jonathan left office, our debt was 12 trillion naira. When Buhari left office, our debt was 87 trillion naira that we paid is increasing. Now, as at now, we are talking about 159 trillion naira as our debt. Only God knows what it will look like by this time next year, maybe 200 trillion naira. So it keeps on going, it keeps on increasing. And these guys will ensure they are servicing, maintain, because they make more money. Somebody is owing you 10,000 naira and is servicing you 1,000 naira every month. For 10 months, how much is that? 10,000 naira has made his money. And the next 10 months, 10,000, that's 200%, that'll be 100%. And for another month again. So they make more money when you service your debt. You're in their good books. Keep your economic doing well, or sustain it as much as you can sustain it. Make sure it doesn't crash. And that's why they're always interested in our revenue and our expenses.
Which raises the questions now, because yes, we're looking at policies being run by this present government to create more revenue. We have seen that ever since he stepped into office. And the question has been, we are making a lot more revenue, but is it showing on the people, on the economic? This is not the first time we have seen a body come out to warn Nigerians, in recent years about what is happening economically, financially, especially with the borrowing.
No, the World Bank was being diplomatic because it has answered that question. We're making more money, but hidden charges is taking more of the money, 41%. So how will you see it on the people? And the areas that they are not claiming the money is going, let me draw your attention back. When Oyo State had this crisis with Fayoshe, 30 billion, 50 billion, and they said 30 billion was given, everybody paid attention on the 30 billion naira that they said Oyo State got. But I was looking for the state that got 150 billion in the southwest. And what did they do with that billion, with that money? And what was the disaster that happened around that period that warrants the government giving them that intervention? Everybody was silent about it.
Did you find any?
No, the information, when everybody pays attention, the media, the investigators, the politician pays attention on a particular area. They run a system, the government run a system that they will tell you what they want you to know, not what you should know. And if they don't give you, because they are the newsmaker, we are here discussing World Bank and response of the Nigerian government. So it's based, I'm not in the system that I will tell you that this is what happened. So based on the information they want you to know, and that is what you will know. In fact, I even asked somebody in the government, I said, why can't we find out who that state is? Although people were down saying, is this state, could be this state, could be that state, you cannot actually lay a particular claim on this is the exact state. But these are where money is going. That governor collected the money.
Okay, so are you saying that, or are you insinuating that the Nigerian government is corrupt?
What's corruption? Corruption is a simple thing, inaccountability. Jonathan had an issue when he